Namo Amida Buddha. That means I entrust myself and pay homage to Amitabha Buddha, the Buddha of infinite light and life, whom I make offerings of tea to, as well as water and vegetarian food. And I spend time drinking tea with the Buddha, as strange as that sounds. My favorite tea is green tea. And right now I am drinking an infusion of gunpowder green tea, chai tea, and Korean ginseng. Is absolutely delicious. I used to be a fanatic coffee drinker, but if I drink too much coffee, I not only get jittery, it'll just actually start to flip me out in the head. I'll get so wired and over caffeinated that I will actually just start tripping out, and that's not a good thing, especially when your goal in life at age 61 is to live a very, very sedate, very relaxed, very tranquil, very simple life. And so I have some aged pu'er, and I like pu'er on occasions. Pu'er tea is green tea that has been greatly fermented. And it's got a very earthy, woody taste to it. And on occasions I enjoy having pu'er tea. I may have some tonight. But for the most part, my two favorites are jasmine green tea, which the quality jasmine green tea tends to lose its flavor after just 2 or 3 steepings. My favorite of all teas is gunpowder green tea. I remember about 20 years back, I went to a Asian market that's now kind of defunct in Houston, known as Hong Kong Mall. And I bought probably about 10 boxes. At that time they were very cheap. Now it would break the bank. It would be hundreds of dollars to get that amount now. But these were boxes of green tea because I'd heard the health benefits of green tea from a New Ager friend that would later give me a book on what the Buddha taught and change my life forever. But I remember I loved the rich, deep flavor of gunpowder tea. And gunpowder tea, for those of you who don't know, is little tea nuggets. They're rolled, and they're very concentrated and bursting with tea flavor. And I ended up drinking all of those boxes of tea. I used to work in the fields for my landlady, and back then, believe it or not, I was very muscular and buff and would tear trees, saplings out of the ground, and would garden in the garden, and it did a lot for me psychologically. I've always loved nature. I've always found my peace and calm in nature. But there's just something about green tea. I remember when I was a kid in elementary school, we went to visit this Japanese restaurant called Tokyo Gardens. Now keep in mind, elementary school. This was back in the 1960s. This was a hell of a long time ago. And growing up in Houston, Texas, all I knew was Lipton's or Tetley's or Nest tea. That was it. And it was always iced tea. Very rarely, if ever, did we drink hot tea. We drank hot coffee in the South. Our tea was always very iced, very sweetened, and usually with lemon. But I tried green tea, and that was also when I first used chopsticks, and I made sure to remember how to use chopsticks after learning prior to going to Tokyo Gardens. That was the name of the restaurant. I would practice with pencils and tinker toys and anything I could, 2 sticks, and I would, make sure I knew how to manipulate chopsticks. And later I went to a Chinese restaurant in a shopping mall food court, and the Chinese man there said, you use chopsticks beautifully. I said, oh, thank you. I've had years of practice. But drinking green tea for the first time, it struck me how rich and delicate it was at the same time. Of course, this was matcha tea. But there's just something about the delicate, almost loving flavor of green tea that just calms the senses. It keeps you alert, but yet it doesn't make me over-wired. It doesn't make me freak out. It doesn't give me anxiety attacks. Oh man, and you add the ginseng, which adds kind of a woody sweetness to it, and the chai, which spices it. And the chai I added to this is a chai green tea infusion. There's just something loving and delicate about the flavor of green tea. There's a legend, a Chinese legend about how tea came to pass. The Buddha Dharma master Bodhidharma, who helped bring Zen, what came to be known as Zen Buddhism, from India to China, is said to have been meditating in a cave one day. And he kept dozing off, and frustrated by dozing off, he became irritated. And he ripped off his eyelids, which I always thought was a very gory legend. And when his eyelids fell to the ground, they became tea leaves. And they sprouted a tree, and the leaves of this tea tree have been used by monks for centuries to maintain alertness during meditation. And there are times in the same way I drink green tea while I'm studying the Dharma. I'm saying Nimbutsu. Nimbutsu, for those of you who don't know, is the name of Amitabha Buddha. I'm what is known as Jodo Shinshu, a Japanese sect of Pure Land Buddhism. And in Pure Land Buddhism, the focus is solely on Amitabha Buddha and reaching his pure land of ultimate bliss and peace. In Jodo Shinshu, we come to accept that we cannot bring ourselves there to enlightenment by our own merits. Indeed, we see our own merits as nothing. But we entrust ourselves to Amitabha Buddha, say his name in faith and gratitude, and wish to be born in his pure land of ultimate bliss and peace. And we say his name as a way of connecting with him, as a way of saying thank you for this salvation, this knowledge that I will be born in the pure land in my next life. And I have this Shinjin. This is not something I have caused to happen inside myself, but Amitabha caused to happen in me once my karma was ripe enough to receive Amitabha's gift. And this is a Buddhist channel, so I unapologetically talk about all things Buddhist. This is why I'm a vegetarian. And this is one of the great influences on my tea drinking, is I love tea, but I've always been drawn to tea drinking as it pertains to Oriental mysticism. You have the Tibetan monks who drink butter tea made from yak butter and mixed with pu'er fermented tea. I've actually seen a video of how this is made, and it's fascinating. I've also seen how tea is fermented, how tea is rolled. There's a rich history to tea. And I think it's ironic that Americans during the American Revolution against the British rebelled against the British tea tax by drinking coffee, and we abstained from tea as a culture for a very long time, but of late tea has made a tremendous comeback. And coffee has had a refinement via espresso drinks. I mean, not all things in life are negative, not all things are bad. And taking time to just enjoy a cup of tea of your choice can be a very calming time of spiritual reflection, relaxation, and I enjoy doing this on a regular basis. I wake up every morning before work and I get the tea kettle going, and I start with one packet of ginseng, instant ginseng, to one gaiwan full of green tea. And I continue to add hot water to that. For those of you who don't know what a gaiwan is a Chinese covered cup. And what you do is you put your tea in, you add the water, and you just tip the whole thing, saucer and all, over your teacup, and then you sip your tea. This is my favorite form of drinking tea because it's very repetitive and very relaxing. And I mentioned drinking tea with the Buddha and offering tea to the Buddha. From time to time, I will make offerings of water, tea, and even food that I enjoy, always vegetarian food. It'd actually be very insulting to offer Buddha meat. So say I make a dish, a noodle dish or a rice dish. There's a little tiny gaiwan, little white cup next to the Buddha statue on the altar. From time to time I will put some of that in a cup, or sometimes even a small salad, or whatever I'm eating for my meal. I don't do this every time I have a meal. I mean, right now it's empty. But from time to time I do that, because these are things from my daily life. These are expressions of me. And I see my life as an offering to the Buddha. I experience my life as an offering to the Buddha, and I recite the Buddha's name in thanksgiving. Because I personally feel that anything good in my personality, in my karma, in my daily life, comes from Amitabha Buddha, the Buddha of infinite light and life. And so I am grateful to Amitabha Buddha for all beautiful things in my life. Whether it's a butterfly, walks through a forest. Yesterday when I was going about my business, I walked out in the morning, and in the field across from my apartment complex there were, I know this sounds strange, this being October, there were buzzards, vultures, black vultures, circling the field. Apparently something had died in the field. And I just stood because they were so graceful and so beautiful. And also it made me think of impermanence. It made me think of the fact that I'm not going to be here forever. One day I will be, that corpse. A cremated corpse, but a corpse nonetheless. And that life doesn't last forever in its present form. And I began to just watch, mesmerized, as the birds flew over me, and their graceful wings soaring and gliding, and I just started saying Namo Amida Bu, Namo Amida Bu, Namo Amida Bu. You have to be able to take the time to savor the good things in life, because they're so negative. There's so much negative out there. But that's what makes the flowers that grow in the cracks of the sidewalks all that much more beautiful. And so I just wanted to offer this video to you about the simple joy and pleasure of drinking tea. Namo Amida Bu.